Hello, Ryan here, aka Mac, and welcome! Once again, the monthly reports are upon us, so let us break down the Squadron 42 report today. As always, a huge thank you to all of my patrons and channel members. Thank you guys so much for all the support, it is truly appreciated. So, kicking off with the AI content team, it says the team began setting characters up to use the mobiGlas at a variety of seats and tables. So now basically NPCs can sit at tables, they can eat, they can drink, and they can interact with their own mobiGlas. They also completed a large amount of animation polish, including a medic inspecting a patient, exiting beds from different directions and heights, and sitting on the floor feeling sick. Now I expect this will be for certain scenes in the Squadron 42 campaign, but will also be applicable to the PU as well. The team also enabled utility characters to load boxes onto a trolley, move the trolley, and then unload those boxes to add additional life to large areas. This, I hope, will soon be possible in the PU, especially for those small caged trolleys that we have, as I was hoping to use them in the verse for moving boxes of armor from the bunker to my ship, but unfortunately they slide off. But it is great to hear that NPCs can do this, and when it comes to hauling cargo in the verse, being able to see NPCs physically move that cargo to and from your ship will be so cool. Also, alongside all of this, the bridge crew behavior in the Shubin station was refined, and a first pass setup for an interactive weapon rack was completed. Now, moving on to the AI features team, they worked on non-humanoid creature AI, and this involved increasing the range of animations that the creature can use, including a slow walk that allows the creature to stalk its prey, and look poses that allow the creature to turn its head and face the target. Now this sounds very cool, a predatory style creature that stalks its prey, likely something we will meet face to face in the campaign, and potentially in the PU once we go to the same locations. Now, improvements were also made to the code that distributes the creatures around a target when they attack in groups, and this uses the formation system currently used in Spaceship AI, and when moving towards a target, it checks for and creates a formation around the target with offsets designed to space the attacks equally, and this implementation is currently with the designers for feedback before final adjustments are made. Now I think we have heard about this specific creature in a previous report and how they are pack animals and they hunt together, so I really hope that we end up in a situation having to deal with these creatures. Now the medic behavior work continued, allowing enemy AI to revive friends. For downed AI, these are AI that have taken near fatal damage and can only be revived by a med pen, exactly just like the players, whereas unconscious AI are those that have been knocked out via, say, stealth takedowns, for example, and can be revived by any friendly, I assume by just waking them up, a bit like Metal Gear Solid. Now the team have also spent time tidying up different interactions, in particular focusing on what the AI does when encountering a downed or unconscious AI during combat, and for example, a medical AI will respond and revive their friends regardless of the condition that they're in. However, non-medic AI will call for a medic nearby to come to the aid. Now I quite like this, so the combat AI will remain aware with their weapon up, which is far more realistic as, of course, the threat might still be present. Development of the buddy AI continued. This now includes matching the player's stance, for example being crouched, and moving between cover when enemies are near. Again, work done here will tie into hiring NPCs in the PU eventually, once it all transitions over. Now for the AI tech team, they completed the NPC transit feature, which manages elevators and trains, and now NPCs will understand if a transit carriage is present, whether they can move inside, whether they have to wait for it or press a button to call it, and then they will also understand when they've arrived at their destination and can exit. And while they are in this carriage, they will be looking for usables and then idle there until they reach their destination. And also the team have been improving the NPC trolley usage, ensuring NPCs can use elevators and move trolleys with them. So great stuff that is also mentioned in the PU report here, but it's good news that NPCs are now capable of using transit systems properly, which will in the long run allow for the full dynamic population. Now the team also finished the base skeleton for boids, or birdoid objects, which will enable small groups of creatures like birds, fish and rats. Now this required a new component, including a system that allows designers to write rules and constraints related to spawning and movement. So really interesting in hearing this, and should add some much needed life to all the planets that require it. Hopefully one day soon we can get that classic Elder Scrolls type mission for killing rats in the basement. On the navigation side, it says work continued on cost area shapes that will influence the topology of navigation mesh triangles. And the navigation mesh is the system that allows NPCs to walk across any surface like a planet, for example. Now this, they say, will enable the Pathfinder to avoid or prefer to use specific areas, and will initially be used to avoid things like fire, as we heard last month. The team also exposed new parameters to specify entity properties during the navigation generation phase. And I can imagine that the nav mesh and all of its specifics is quite a challenge, considering how vast and various the planet's surfaces can be. Now for the AI tools team, they progressed on the Apollo tool, which is referring to the subsumption tool, not the ship, and they added new functionality requested by the designers. So for the AI vehicle features team, they continued to work on new AI combat behaviors, with the team saying, "We've had a lot of back and forth with the design teams and directors to nail down behavior tactics that we're happy with, and are now working to implement and test this new combat AI." Also, the new control surface feature for the vehicle flight system is being integrated with AI, with adjustments being made to the AI movement system to enable them to fly correctly and reliably with control surfaces rather than thrusters. So this is pretty exciting to hear, that this is now getting hooked up. Being able to rely solely on aerodynamics instead of thrusters will be great for so many sections. Of course, this is referring to AI, but for players, you could lose power and have to perform a crash landing, but using the ability to glide to make it a little softer, or even turning off your systems and gliding for stealth purposes. Not to mention how it will just feel great having a realistic atmospheric flight experience. Now for the animation team, they worked on various features, including the first creature enemy. I wish they would show us. They also worked on the Vanduul searching actions and threatens, ammo looting and AI healing, plus they worked on pro-style takedowns based on the recent unskilled versions, with some designs being made for failed attacks. Now this is talking about the player abilities, like being able to run for longer periods of time if you do it more often. Takedowns were the only use cases that I was concerned about branching into that skill tree element, which is not what Star Citizen's about. It is a skill game, not a traditional MMO with skill trees. But I do think it's more a case of the animation is different and looks more refined the more that you do it, rather than the actual outcome of whether you have accurately taken down someone or not, as that will still be based on player skill and execution, with the animations just changing over time the more that you do it and get it right, which I actually do like the idea of. Now for the background AI, development of sick characters, medical wards and emergency exits from object use was done, with the team also working on the Kastak Arms sniper rifle, and began reviewing the first pass of the Titan animation rig. Now this is quite big news. The Titan rig, or the Titan armor, Titan suit, this is stuff we have been waiting for a long time, many of us very excited for it. And this, I believe, is intended to be used as a combat sort of exoskeleton to offer better armor at the expense of mobility, while maybe being able to hold size 1 ship weapons. But it's also very exciting to hear that the first animation pass is underway. But it was also mentioned in the latest subscriber Jump Point magazine, when referencing the lore of the in-game manufacturer called Virgil, that one of their products is power armor, and it says commonly known as Titan suits that are expensive and intended for heavy commercial and industrial applications, such as mining and cargo management. So as you can imagine, not just for combat, but for many other roles, lugging boxes around in a reclaimer's hold in a Titan suit, or maybe mining away, that'll be pretty insane, not to mention any other application CIG can think of. Hopefully we get to see this come along soon, because I am very excited for these Titan suits. Now the team also worked on the Zero-G grenade used for players, which was developed alongside further Zero-G traversal and movement. Also hoping that we get to see the new EVA system in the PU soon, because that'll make a huge difference. Various mocap data was captured, including a crowd watching a fight, numerous walk styles, use of hygiene cubicles, movement and stacking boxes, security weapon racks, and improved threat reactions for civilians. So it is clearly working really well having their own mocap studio in the new offices, as it allows them to capture this stuff and get it done much quicker. But it's interesting to hear about the various walk styles, as it was mentioned by Chris Roberts a long while ago that he would like players to pick movement styles during the character creation process, just to bring a bit more diversity to our avatars. So hopefully the work being done here for Squadron 42 specifically will also be an option for the PU, as I believe for Squadron it is more for just the background characters rather than for the player, but that's not to say that it won't be able to come over. Now for the facial animation team, they worked on lines for enemies in the Macedo comm relay station and captured facial forms and locomotion performances for injured and sick characters. Now for the character art team, they continued to work on the Screaming Galsons faction, including a set of cybernetic arms that the team are excited to implement. I'm sure there will be many players blowing their limbs off just to have cybernetic versions. Now the team are also progressing with the high poly stages for the Navy pilot flight suit and other Navy assets, while work began on the OMC faction and the model for the enemy creature mentioned above. If I was to guess, which is completely a guess, I don't know, I would say it sounds like some form of wolf or dog creature, with them being pack hunters. It could even be this Vanduul dog, which is not officially confirmed. I don't even think it's part of the lore really, but it was somewhat created on Star Citizen Live as a way to just show off the process. They did specify that things designed there are not guaranteed to make it into the PU, but you never know, it could make that whole gameplay of exploring areas with the Vanduul around even more interesting if they have dogs around. Although it does sound more like a wild pack of something rather than a tamed dog. Now for the vehicle features team, they enabled the newly redesigned quantum travel feature across various chapters in the campaign, with the team saying it's taken a lot of bug fixing, testing and iterating to get to this stage, but so far it's been going well and the new quantum travel is set to be enabled game-wide very shortly. As well as just bug fixing and testing, we've had a lot of design feedback from the directors and we've been making iterations to the UI, controls, visual effects and general feel of the feature. So it does sound like quite the overhaul and that it's coming along very well and should be in the PU pretty shortly, I reckon. Now another major focus for the vehicle feature team was vehicle UI. The team recently reviewed new features from UI Tech that enabled them to render 3D UI on the player's visor as an AR layer, which led to them building up reticle, aiming and targeting UI in this new tech as they work towards vehicle HUDs that integrate with the new multifunction display system. Now this sounds really interesting. Helmets, if you didn't know, are to be items with more functionality than just protecting you from zero atmosphere and bullets. They will be specific to each role that they are designed for, which include role-specific HUDs like mining helmets, giving more contextual information for minables, but not so effective in a gunfight, or combat helmets, as we can hear here, having new AR-layered reticles and helpful combat readouts. Helmets are going to change big time, and picking the right one for the job at hand will be very important, and I cannot wait to see this come along. Now it goes on to say that the underlying MFD tech is complete, and the feature is almost usable in-game, with the team's goal now to enable it game-wide for use in playtesting by all devs in the company. The ship's radar received further work due to requests made by other teams to support their design work. Most of these involved mission logic, manipulating the radar system to generate gameplay encounters. And they have been working on updating the radars, scanners and signature systems, which will open up a ton of new gameplay options in the PU when ready, not to mention just the quality of life improvement. Finally, for the vehicle features team, the ship recall feature was further iterated on to improve and polish gameplay, and this was a collaboration with AI, flight systems and other feature teams, and when complete, the player will be able to use the Squadron 42 Mobiglass to call their ship and request it to fly back to them. Now this is quite interesting. Hopefully something we can get in the PU, but I'm not sure if it will require some thinking about, as it might not be something they want us to have access to in the persistent universe, but potentially in some way that could be the case. Fingers crossed they come up with a good idea or design for allowing us to do that in the verse, but I can see in a multiplayer environment how this will not translate as perfectly as it would in a single player game. Anyway, moving on to the gameplay story team, they focused on mocap planning and polish passes to further improve their scenes. A significant scene in Chapter 12 received a full pass, with a key character guiding and interacting with the player across a new environment. The team also worked on a scene used if the player is injured and visits the medical bay to be healed, with the scene initially created using wild lines, but didn't flow as well as they'd hoped, so new animations were produced to make the character interact better with the player. So for the flight level design team, they worked to get all the ship combat sections of the game flowing seamlessly into the social and FPS sections, so they continue to get critical system updates integrated into the game flow. Plus, they further improved quantum travel and pinned targets, and save and load was also worked on alongside gameplay features. For the social level design team, they made a push on content across various chapters, including a major focus on background behaviours and schedules for the Idris. Now this content, they say, brings the interstitials to life and was rolled out to one focus chapter to enable the team to see and evaluate in situ all of the Idris specific behaviours, which include the deck crew, bridge crew, utility, marines, engineers, gunners, medical, leisure, sleeping, sustenance and hygiene, plus a large party scene aboard the ships progressed as well. So this is referring to all the various behaviours the crew will have, as each individual crew member on this Idris will have their day-night cycles. They will be on duty, off duty, hanging out, playing arcade machines, exercising. So this is just making sure that they all work fine before the player comes along and destroys it all. Now, moving on to the narrative team, most of their time was spent prepping for an upcoming mocap shoot, which included meetings to review the content to ensure that the script reflects the latest changes, outlining any potential lines they'd like to capture and go through the casting process. The team also planned to use this shoot to start capturing scripts for some background characters who will be used to populate larger spaces, and these characters will utilise the dynamic conversation tech along with an array of wild lines to act in a variety of careers. Hopefully they'll be able to show us an example of these background characters and the dynamic conversation tech, because I'm really intrigued to see just how realistic this tech works and functions, and if they just show off background characters, then surely there'll be no spoilers. Now, Narrative are also aiming to capture a few of these line sets in every shoot to slowly build up the numbers, as well as capturing additional combat sets for some of the campaign's enemies. They also continued to walk through the latest level iterations with the design team to assess if any additional content is required to support gameplay, provide guidance, or embellish the tone and flavour of the moment. And finally, the team have been outlining the various collectibles that will be scattered throughout the game, and now that the type of collectibles have been decided, they can start outlining each one so that the props team can start creating them. And these will be likely Squadron 42 specific findables, not necessarily to be found in the verse, just to reward those players who do play through the campaign. Hopefully we'll be able to take them through to the verse with us, which I suppose at that point makes them available in the verse. Now for the tech animation team. They were on set at Pinewood Studios in London, working alongside an outsourced studio to finalise scanning to populate the remainder of the gene pool for the head generation system, which is relevant, they say, for both the PU and Squadron, with the team saying, "We scanned a broad range of models, young and old, from all facets of humanity available to us, which will go a long way to truly showing diversity in our game. The scanning went exceptionally well. Our chosen outsourced studio has a fantastic resource in their facial scanning rig, which delivered exceptional results. Coupled with lots of hard work and a good sense of humour, we made the most of our 2 weeks." So really looking forward to seeing this new DNA system and when that will come to the PU, as the character creator right now is pretty stale, and we are still awaiting the new hair options. So hopefully one day soon we will have a much greater range of head choices and the hairs that will hopefully have our avatars actually identifiable from one another purely on their looks. Now for the UI team, they worked on reusable signage created in building blocks to make things easier for the environment artists, and this means that they can select options from a menu and the sign is automatically generated rather than them having to create a unique texture each time, so that should save them a ton of time. They also continued to concept 2 UI styles, ensuring they are unique and the art direction is well received, plus produced concepts for additional MFD screen layouts and tweaked aiming and targeting alongside the vehicle team. Now UI also continued to iterate on one of the in-world holographic UIs, with the team saying, "As it's the first of its kind in-game, after reviewing the prototype, we found lots of things to improve, so it had another concepting and in-game implementation pass to get it to the level we need." The team also made an initial visual pass on the new hacking UI to make it feel more three-dimensional and holographic. They also supported the Squadron 42 feature in setting up the universal 3D marker in the StarMap, and continued to create UI assets for the cinematics team. The UI tech team created a color picker for use in the character customizer, plus they continued to help polish the StarMap, adding space dust to make it easier to perceive movement, improving the controls, and creating cubic hollow volumes. And they also added workflow fixes as well, such as improved comments in building blocks and making it easier to inspect drawn UI. So it is going to be very exciting seeing the StarMap for the first time, this new StarMap, and if UI are now polishing it, refining the controls, then I don't think we're too far off it being completed. But of course they will want to get it into Squadron 42 first, but hopefully this is the year that we do see the StarMap. I know that's what Chris Roberts is wanting. Now finally we have the visual effects team, who will be on Star Citizen Live tomorrow, if I've got this out in time. They spent time cleaning up data assets which come in the particle libraries. This was made easier by the visual effects programmers, who added more detailed information to the errors. The team also completed their overhaul of the particle library structure, meaning older visual effects can be swapped out for new and improved versions, which is great to hear that that is now done. It has been an ongoing task for about 2 to 3 months, but this should also benefit us in terms of performance and just much better visuals. And finally, the team provided close support to art, design and cinematics on a variety of locations. So, there you have it. That was the Squadron 42 monthly report. A huge amount of progress in all areas of Squadron 42's campaign. Great to hear it's all coming together. I will now get on with the Persistent Universe monthly report, so if you do appreciate my videos, please do consider subscribing. Also, come and hang out over at twitch.tv/supermacbrother. We are chilling out playing some 318. It is on the cusp of releasing. Next week is what CIG have said after this weekend full of stress tests, so fingers crossed all goes well. Hit the thumbs up if you don't mind, it does the channel a big favour, and tick that notification bell if you would like to be notified when my videos go live. Again, a huge thank you to my patrons and channel members. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.